He currently owns 8 radio stations, 2 TV stations, and is partner in a private law firm, Jewell & Collins. In 2014, Time Magazine named him as one of their 40 and under rising stars in American politics. Michael graduated from the University of Notre Dame in 1997 and from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln in 2001. Mike is a board member of the Children's Scholarship Fund, Gregory Windmill Museum, and Midwest Bank NA, and is a member of the Norfolk Rotary Club, Norfolk Broadcasters Association, and is Nebraska-Madison County Bar Association. Mike and his wife Mandy live in Norfolk with their 2 sons, Brendan and Blake. Please welcome Mr. Mike Flood.
When Mr. Wimoff called, I told him I'm a retired politician. Only 3 of you laughed. Now, tell me about this young lady over here that did the patriotic reading. Are you already in the armed forces? What are you doing? National Guard. Thank you very much for doing that. Wow, isn't that amazing? I was driving around Elgin. I tried to find those 9 people that didn't vote for the swimming pool, but nobody's fessed up to it yet. They must be hiding out in a bunker somewhere. What a great, resounding vote of confidence for Elgin's future. I was working the news last night, and we heard that the school, that the pool passed, and I thought, well, that's going to be my top story, because that's good news. And the world's full of bad news, isn't it? What I thought about doing today, and you got to remember, I really haven't been in the politics business for a while. I got out, my wife got sick, and I'm happy to say she is 100% better. And yeah. But I was thinking about these kids that are sitting here now, the seniors. You would have been born in what, 1999, 97, the year I graduated from college. Okay. So when you grow up, you know, and for most of you, 9/11 didn't happen under your watch. You were already just a sparkle in your parents' eye at that time. You weren't even born yet. So you grew up really in a time that our nation was at war for a majority of it, you know. After 2001 and Iraq and Afghanistan and the ongoing conflict in the Middle East, you've lived during a period of wartime. Contrast that with some of us in the room. We lived during the greatest time of peace in our nation's history. I was born in 1975, and the Gulf War obviously in 91, and then 2011. So I was thinking about what your perspective is as you think about Veterans Day, and it's really not fair that I'm the one doing the Veterans Day speech, because I haven't served my country like these men have here, like this young lady has already decided to do. But that doesn't mean we don't have a job. We are citizens of this country, and that comes with some responsibilities. We're so busy talking about everybody's rights every single day, and I'll get to that in a second. But think about the era that you kids are growing up in. When your parents were this age, there were memos, and their boss would send out a memo, and the principal would send out a memo. And let me tell you what a memo is. A memo says, this is what the facts are, and this is what you're going to do. Now, in your generation, you're at blogs, and a blog is something where the person that used to write the memos now writes a blog. And after he gets done writing the blog, then everybody in the free world gets to weigh in on what he said. And then we make this big group decision about what's best for all of us. And I don't think that's necessarily a good idea for our country every single day. Because there have to be choices, and there have to be choices that we make as citizens. We have to choose to honor veterans. We have to choose to recognize their service. Do you think that somebody back in 1776 said, it's a good idea to go down, or I should say 1852, it's a good idea to go down to Georgia and try and burn down Atlanta? I have relation down there, but those folks want slaves, and we're against slavery. Let's go down and let's go to war with them. Nobody chose that. No individual person chose to go fight their brother in Atlanta. But the country said slavery isn't right. The country said Nebraska is going to be free and Kansas can make up its own mind. And when all the folks that wanted slavery showed up in Kansas, and all the folks that wanted it to be a free state showed up in Kansas, they had a huge brawl, and they started killing each other, and that developed into the Civil War. And boys in this town, a long time ago, had to make a choice. Am I going to serve my country, or am I going to run? If those boys hadn't said, I'm going to go down to Georgia and I'm going to support the Union Army, this country might not look like it does today. It might look like a country that isn't America. It might look like a country where people are property. And that's not right. Do you think that Red over here, who was probably tougher than most of you guys back in 1945, do you think he's probably 165 pounds with real big muscles? And he was probably playing football for Elgin, St. Bon's. Do you think he chose to go in the military and go over to Europe? He knew what his country needed. And when he got in the bus, he sat down in the seat and he followed the rules. And he showed up into Europe or into Asia, and he was in some pretty bad spots. And he didn't choose that. He didn't choose to drop a gun. He didn't choose to go in and have to hold one of your buddies dying in the field. He did it because that's what you did. He did it because there was no other way to beat the Germans, to beat the Japanese. There was no other way to be than to be free. And you think his mom wanted him to go over there and risk his life? She had a lot invested in him. She birthed him. His dad and her raised him, took him to church, introduced him to girls. Well, maybe not. He goes over there, he's bigger than most of you guys in high school, and he's like, I got a gun, I got a uniform, and I got a job. And that's the difference between generations sometimes. You know, I was raised in a time where I didn't have to wake up one morning and wait for a draft card. Some of these guys, the Vietnam War, that was not a popular war. They didn't have a choice. They really didn't have a choice. I mean, if you're a boy and your birthday's on a certain date and you get a card, that number comes up. Nobody comes to your house and sits down with you and holds your mom's hand and says, now listen, Mrs. Flood, we're going to need Michael in the Army. And he's going to have to bring his toothbrush. And he's going to have to bring some other toiletries. But we'll let him write every week and we'll make sure he stays in the nicest place we've got over there in Brussels. No. They said, get on the bus, get your uniform on, and let's go to boot camp. And it wasn't a choice. It was what you did. Now, I think about how we operate in today's environment. You know, I remember being in the legislature, and I was only in the state legislature. Those congressmen and U.S. senators, you know, they get the briefings from what happens in Syria. And I think about what's happening over in Iraq. And as a state senator, I had the occasion to go to a lot of these meetings where wives and loved ones of soldiers would sit around a table and cry. They didn't know where their husband was. You know, I think about sitting at those meetings and I just think, this is terrible. You know, their son is over there just about ready to get killed. And they're sitting here asking me, how come I can't find out where he's at? I was like, call your congressman. I have no idea how to get a hold of anybody over there. But no, I wasn't. I sat there and held their hand and said, you know what your son is doing is helping the rest of us. And she looks at me and she says, it's not fair. Why do I have to go to bed every night worried if my son's going to get killed and all the rest of these kids don't have to deal with it? And if you think about that, it wasn't fair to her. It wasn't fair to her. Her son wanted a college education. He signed up for the Army. He went over to Iraq and he's getting shot at and she's going to bed stewing. And they live in Tilden. That's what choices are about. I feel as bad for that mother as I did for that soldier. And the good news is he came home. But when they come home having seen things the rest of us don't even know about or can't understand. And nothing drives me more angry than to see people moving around worried about soccer practice and worried about football and worried about dance recital when people are getting shot at over in Syria. You know, this ISIS outfit. We have the pleasure of living in a country where we don't have to worry about somebody taking our mom and our sister, putting chains on their ankles and taking them to a back room and sexually assaulting them for 2 years, while they take the men in the other room and they kill them. That's the kind of stuff that's happening in the world. And that's the kind of stuff that these people that sign up to serve in our military have to deal with. Now, had I been a state senator going to those meetings, I would never have thought about the impact on a family. And the only reason, I mean, they invite people from the government to come sit down because they need resources. They need to know where their son's at. You know, the next call I get is from somebody that is upset because the principal made their kid sit out of school for 2 days on a suspension, and he wasn't given the right to go in there and make, you know, the parent wasn't given the right to go in there and make his case. And I'm thinking, I got one lady on Friday night that's praying that her son's still alive. And then I got some parent call me from a different school, worried that her son didn't get a fair hearing because he got kicked out of school for 2 days for probably jacking around. It's about choices, you know? That's what we have to remember. We get I get a drive here today worried about the rain and worried about whatever, getting the news on at 10 o'clock tonight. And there are people from Elgin, from Antelope County, from Madison County, that are in places that aren't comfortable. Nobody sat down with them and said, is it okay if we put another 90 days over here in Afghanistan? I know you got a lot of stuff going on at home, but we'd really like to keep you here. It's not how it works in the U.S. military. And I guess I share that with you because I think that's the biggest distinction. You look at Red Earhart over here, and you can say, I've known him for decades on decades on decades, some of you. But when he was 16, when he was 18, he was just about as big as you guys over there, especially that guy in the blue shirt and the purple shirt. You guys did well. Think about all the things ahead of you in your life that you're thinking about. You're thinking about graduating high school. You're thinking about maybe getting an education, going to get a job, getting married, hopefully in that order. You're worried about maybe farming with your dad or seeing if you can get your hand on some ground or raising a family. I bet you Red wanted every one of those things too. But the president came to people like him and said, I need you now, and I need you to put your life on the line. And you read such a nice piece about the soldier going through all those motions. I always think about, I have a lot to say about a lot of things, as you might imagine. And I have wondered, what would I be thinking if I was in one of those boats that Higgins designed, and it was coming in on Omaha Beach? You've seen the movies of it, and I think that some of those are pretty accurate. You're sitting in there, the water's splashing over, you got your helmet on, your teeth are chattering. I would probably be talking somebody's ear off about what I didn't think was right about this. And the door opens, and the first one out, right ahead of you, gets shot in the head. But because you want to fight to keep freedom, you get out of that boat and you start shooting. That's courage. There's a lot of us that I think would probably rather sit at the back of the boat and kneel down with our helmet as close to the ground as possible and just pray to God we didn't get shot. But the courage that that first guy had, or the second guy, or even the 50th guy had, to get out of that boat, raise your gun, and start shooting, while you watch all these other people get shot. People that, they're soldiers, but they're your friends. You know, how do you go through an experience like that and not let those people become your friends? That's a choice. And that mother should be taken care of the rest of her life. Because for as bad as it is for her son, think about all the mothers we have here today. And I talk all about all these guys. Look at this young lady over here. She's going to be, you're going to be the best looking Army lady in America. I might have joined the Army if I knew you were going. And actually, I've never actually had a teardrop in one of these things before, so it must be that I'm out of practice. But I tell you what, it's about choices. And these guys here, no matter where they were, they're not even asking to be recognized. But they made choices. And they went through the program. And they didn't ask about their rights. They didn't ask about having a hearing. They just went and did it. And that's what we pray to God happens if that ever happens again. And you know what? I actually think it would. If there were a war like that in a year, everybody grew up real fast. And you'd be there. I'd be there, I hope. Probably as an attorney or something. Well, that's all I had. I didn't want to go on forever, but thank you very much for having me here tonight, or today, and let's just say thank you to these men and women.